All right, so describe and give examples for the following terms: role, status, ascribed and achieved status, and role conflict. That's where we finished off yesterday. So your example should pertain to you. So think of a status that you acquire, think of a role that you have within that status, and then maybe talk about ascribed and achieved status that you have as well. So there you go. There you go. I'll give you a little bit of time to work on that. It's a little bit longer. Maybe you have to think about some of the statuses that you have, roles you have in that status. I'll give you like 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Sound good? Like I said, once we're done with this, I have another picture for you, so I can analyze the picture.
We do. Yesterday, yeah.
I was pole vaulting yesterday. I got you. How is how high did you get? Looks like your record. That's good. That's good. That's good. I gotta go down and check the record for the height.
Don't check the record. I'm not getting that. This is my second year.
Really?
Yeah. 2 holes there. She also has no coach. Yeah, no coach.
What?
I don't know.
Oh, geez. I think Colton Gessner had the record for boys. He has it, I think.
No, I know. What you role? Basically, you use role and status interchangeably.
Role is like
So-
actions in a status.
Yeah, so your status is the title that you hold. So you're a student. The role of that status is pretty much these behaviors you have as a student.
Wait, say that again?
So the status is the title. So as a student, that's your status, right? So that's the status that you have. You have multiple statuses. That's just one example. The role of a student is the behaviors that you have as a student. So your role is how you study, how you obviously pay attention to class. Yeah, there's many different examples you can come up with. A role for that status. Okay.
What's your role? Really? Yeah. She's like, you're not gonna have to be in my class. Oh, I don't even remember that. I should do that.
What would you like? You said yesterday, like, sport or something? An example.
Give you another minute or two to finish up here.
I feel like it looks slow.
Oh, pretty fast.
It doesn't even feel like Friday. No, it doesn't feel like a Friday to me at all. You know, because like I was here this morning or what. I don't even have a excuse. Yeah, we go sleep.
Your pole
No, you work at Burger King.
You put the training in. Chief has that.
How did you start doing this?
He won 3-0.
Sleep.
Sleep. Accomplished it.
Now, when does he wrestle again?
Today, probably right around 10 o'clock.
And
They're
then
going-
Wednesday.
He places that. So he'll be in the semis then if he wins this match. So the worst he can get is 6 points. But if he loses, he'll have to win 2 more to get into placement matches.
Was he like supposed to win today?
He should, yeah. He should. We'll see though. Never know. All right, let's get to it here. So let's start off with status. What is status? What is a status? What do we got? What do we got? Go ahead. Kelsey, go ahead.
I put my status with student.
Okay, good, good. So good example that you're a student at Upper Dauphin Area High School. What other statuses you might hold? Okay, you're an athlete. Good job. So you have multiple statuses. Okay, we'll talk about that here soon enough. I have an assignment for you. Probably talk about it more next week. I'll give you time to work on it next week. But you're going to make like a status web. So you're going to depict all the statuses that you hold and then describe roles for that certain status and then involve groups that you're a part of with that status. And we can break it down to primary and secondary groups, which we'll talk more about next week. All right, good. So status is a title that you hold. So student, an athlete, okay. If you get a career path, Burger King worker.
That's a terrible example.
Oh, come on now. Come on now. All right, so status, good. What about a scribe and achieve status? Let's just talk about that. What is a scribe status? A scribe status. Go ahead, Kelsey. Take it away.
Of a daughter.
All right, yeah, so that's just given to you at birth, right? There's really no way around it. That's a status that's placed with you, and it's not something that you achieve. It's just given to you at birth. Good job. So your daughter, right? That is a good example of a scribe status. Yesterday, I gave the example of Prince Henry. Obviously, he's a prince. He's just born with that title, that status. And it's something that he didn't achieve. He was just born into the royal family. Man, lucky, right? All right, what about achieve status? What do we got? Achieve status. Allison, what do you have for achieve status?
When people have some degree of control of choice, when people can choose their status.
All right, good, good job. So this is maybe a status, a title that you earn over time through maybe education, okay, through maybe a certification program, okay, maybe it is through training, whatever it might be. So an achieve status is something that you acquire through time, through effort, okay, through maybe training and learning a skill. Yesterday, I gave the example of Aaron Rodgers, great quarterback, right? So he achieved that status through obviously work and his work ethic and constantly striving as a quarterback. What about for you, Kaya? What did you say for your chief status?
I choose to do things I don't want to do, such as try.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're a pole vaulter, right? All right. Successful pole vaulter, 6 feet.
No.
I thought you said you got 6 feet.
Oh, actually, I do.
There you go. Okay. All right. Cool. Cool. All right. So achieve status, something that you earn, something that you achieve. All right, let's talk about a role then. So what is a role? What's a role here? Caitlin, what's a role? Oh, you didn't do a role? Okay. Hey, Luis, what do you have for a role? Yeah, so, okay, so these are behaviors. Okay, these are maybe patterns that you express that you show within that status. So as a student, what are maybe behaviors that you display? Caitlin, what are some behaviors that you display as a student? Yep, good job. So your role within the status of a student is that you are participating in class, right? That you are completing your work, that you're studying for your tests. Okay, there's many different roles that you have as a student. Does that make more sense? Okay, I just want to make sure that was clear. So a role is just a behavior, a pattern that you display, that you express within a status, all right? Okay, and then other examples you can come up with, like let's say of an athlete, okay, obviously going to practice, okay, you're preparing your training, obviously. All right, what about role conflict? What do we have for role conflict? Raven, what do you have?
For me, it's like my friends, friends, stuff gets in the way of either.
Awesome, good job, good job. So you acquire many different statuses, and depending on the time and effort you put into, let's say one status, let's say as a athlete, okay, let's say you're preparing, you're dieting, you're training, okay, and that might get in the way of, let's say, another status of being a student. So that might take a little bit of time away from you studying, okay, preparing for your schoolwork, preparing for a test. And that conflict occurs, right? That happens to everybody. And it just depends how you balance, okay, and maybe prioritize your statuses, which today we're going to talk about a master status. Pretty self-explanatory. And then today we'll also talk about role strain, okay, and we'll even mention a little bit more about how these interactions occur. And then I have somewhat of a activity at the end where you'll just have to act out, like let's say you're a supervisor, and how you'll act out, how you'll solve this certain issue within the workplace. But before we get there, here's a picture for today. Here's a picture for today. Can everybody see it okay? You want me to close the blinds here?
They look like in college.
They're working on a project.
They were all pulled around. They're in a cafe.
They're in their college Starbucks.
On Starbucks. Yeah, I can see that. Okay. All right. What else we got? What do we think? What do we think? So struggling with maybe an assignment? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Maybe they're seeing the events unfolding over in Ukraine. Unfortunately. Like, oh man, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is going on. I know. We should probably throw that out. I think maybe this guy over here is like, maybe he let one rip. He just like ripped. He's like, oh, I don't.
He
Oh.
literally done that. He's literally one.
Sorry.
That's what he does in class.
What else do you think's going on? What else do you think's going on? Nothing?
This one's boring.
You don't
Please
like
have a
this one?
different It's really bad.
This one's
Oh,
like, you took a bad
Can
example.
you please pick a
I
better one?
typed in disappointment. This is like the first thing that came up. So I was like,
Pick
oh,
up
oh,
a
it's good.
crime scene.
Should have been
A crime scene.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then
You gotta guess the crime.
and we can say what happened.
Yes.
Yeah, wait.
Okay, all right, I can do that. Just from one frame, one picture.
Yeah.
And we can maybe go off on a tangent, see what happened. All right, okay, maybe I can do that for next time. All right, so there you go. There's your picture for today. Disappointment.
I'm
That's
not
Man.
the picture.
Oh,
That is not a support. That's
they're
just-
probably doing the same thing. Let's say these are remote students at home. We're like, really? What? Unbelievable. This is a picture that was chosen. All right, vocab for today. I don't know if we'll get the social groups today or not. No, it's up there. I can't zoom in anymore. So master status, we already talked about reciprocal roles, role expectations, role strain, role performance, and social groups. There you go. There you go.
Sorry, the weather makes. They take me home.
I know exactly what you're saying. When I have to run, I'm gonna.
That's how.
I also have an allergy. I was seeing white dots.
Like today's supposed to be 50 and then tomorrow's supposed to snow, like. If
Is it
everyone
supposed
has
to snow tomorrow?
allergies.
Yep.
Yes,
I was seeing white dots.
like ash, yes.
How much is it supposed to snow?
Like 3 to 5.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Just get into a crash. and-
Ask me.
God,
I did say I was gonna get hurt. I just said I would go to work.
oh my gosh.
You were pretty sad.
Anyways, watch me not
So
go.
he won.
I just put my mower at the plow up in the back garage too. Darn.
Might be digging that back
I
out.
would
I guess
perfectly
so.
Get into a crash. I need that car.
All right, I'll give you a couple minutes, right?
You know it was supposed to snow.
Was there a lot of
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were quite a bit.
Because I didn't.
You can get on that. No, I don't think it would.
I didn't see it. Literally when softball starts, I really
Don't get. I don't know before.
And then the batting range is 8 AM and then we go internet to 9 to 11 PM. Practice.
I wouldn't have to work at all during this video work, so I could just.
No, I'm saying like,
Yeah. I'm only one.
I'm gonna have to work because I have to do it. My dad's pissed at me. Wait, what did you say?
I'm kidding.
Which one?
The renegade. You know,
I figured you.
Yeah, here, let me let you pass. You'd be there for a while. No. Okay, well, just take a pass.
Okay, this is, you ask for the picture? That's a true.
No, that would have been great. This is 116, has a backup camera. I never back into spots, so you really think I'm using that?
I have to back in now. Well, I'm like all the time. I have parallel parts in my house customer.
Oh, what are you getting? No worries, it's nothing.
What are you doing?
I don't know what it's called. I don't know what it's called. I actually cannot. All I'm gonna do is the only thing that I'm worried about is that I applied for a loan. And like, we have to pay that. This is huge. My mom's gonna kill me because it's the size. I mean, how much is that?
How long is that? He rides on the side.
You got
With taxes and stuff. What? Should've gone down.
He said he didn't have much wiggle room because they treated it in tax, not tax. Our places were being high, they so are high, so. Well, but she's always dead. What are you talking about? How'd you do it? How?
All right, so let's finish this up here. So master status, like I was talking about, all of you hold many different statuses. Okay, it's just not one that we have. But a master status is something that we try to hold as a priority in our life. Okay, we prioritize this status above all others. All right, so in our society especially, this might be a career that we hold. Okay, this might be a title that we hold within our job. Okay, so a master status, let's say, of an individual, especially here in the United States, you would describe yourself of what career you hold. So whenever I meet someone, they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" Well, I'm a teacher. Okay, that's kind of the status I depict myself as when I'm meeting someone new. All right, so this is a status that you hold and prioritize. So for all of you in here, you should say that you are a student at Upper Dauphin Area High School, right? Okay, or we'll just say that your son, your daughter, to whoever, your parents. So that's something that you hold as a priority, that master status. Some of you might view yourself more as an athlete than a student. Okay, again, it's depending how much you put and prioritize. You should hold a student more than an athlete, but again, in some cases, you put a little bit more time, more effort, you care about maybe athletics a little bit more. So master status, again, is just that status you hold and prioritize the highest. All right. So when you're creating these webs, this assignment that I'm going to talk about here soon, this master status is the one you're going to put right in the middle. Okay, this is something that you view yourself as. If you meet someone new, that's who you're going to describe yourself as. Okay. Look at Will Smith. Pretty cool, huh? You don't like Will Smith?
I like his older movies better.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I love Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Oh, I love it. Love that. You guys see the new show, Bel-Air? It's
I wanted to
on
watch it until I saw
Peacock.
it was a musical, and then I just didn't want to.
It's a musical?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, man. I don't know if I'll check it out. Well, maybe if I have some spare time, but I don't know if it's a, no, I'm not. No, not gonna check that one out. What's that? The first two episodes were a lot. Yeah, I didn't expect it. And then there's Zendaya just getting involved, and I'm like, what is going on? I was just talking about Tom Holland yesterday too with that movie something similar. All right, so reciprocal roles. So reciprocal roles are roles that we have, okay, a status that we might have. These roles are interconnected or corresponding of patterns that we share with, let's say, someone else. Okay, good example would be a husband and a wife. Okay, these are roles that we have and we share that correspond, that interact with one another. Another good example you can come up with is teacher, student, okay, and maybe supervisor and worker. All right, these are roles that interact with one another and are related statuses. Okay, so reciprocal roles are behaviors, these patterns that we share with someone that we obviously have a bond with, that we have a relationship with. Okay, it could be with education, it could be work, it could be really anything. Really anything. Okay, you could even say coach and obviously athlete, right? So these are reciprocal roles. These are roles that interact with one another. Okay, depending on obviously location. So we have multiple reciprocal roles, like I just detailed. So teacher, student. When you're on the athletic field, you might have an athlete, coach. At home, okay, obviously daughter, son to parent. So there's many reciprocal roles that we hold. All right, you guys good with that? All right, role expectations. So role expectations is when we're looking at a status, looking at, let's say, a person in a status, we have these expectations, these behaviors, these patterns that we think this person should entitle, okay, that this person should express within that status. So these roles, these behaviors, these patterns that these people display, okay, this is what we expect when we're entering, let's say, a classroom. Okay, this is the role that constantly, but what many people think students should act, how a teacher should act, how maybe doctors should act. Okay, all right, obviously maybe administrators should act. Okay, so these are roles, these expectations that we hold and that we try to think of these behaviors, these patterns that these people display. Is it truthful all the time? Not really. right? I'm sure we can depict someone of a status that maybe their role expectations are totally different, right? Maybe they don't reach or meet those role expectations that we think about of them holding, right? Does that make sense? So again, as we're entering a classroom, these are behaviors, these are patterns that we expect of, let's say, a teacher. Okay, these are roles or patterns, behaviors that we expect of, let's say, a student that's participating in the class. So when these expectations aren't met, this is difficult, right? These are maybe breaking some of the norms that we expect in our interactions. All right, so with role expectations comes role performance. So actually, how we actually perform in this role. So like I mentioned, depending on, let's say you're going to a restaurant, okay, you're looking to maybe get some food and you expect the food to be perfect. You expect the food to be exactly how maybe you were there before, how it was before. So with these role performances, you might not see this expectation. Okay, this performance might be a little bit different than what we're expecting. So as let's say the consumer in this case, just the example I'm giving, we might look at the chef and say, oh, well, you kind of underperformed this time, right? Maybe they were missing a little bit of the materials they needed to create this dish, this plate. So we kind of judge that performance of that person in that status. So depending on how that person prepares, depending on how that person performs in the role, is kind of the judgments we display, that we express. All right, so in all reality, it doesn't always reach expectations of someone in that role. And so we might look at that role and say, well, okay, maybe this could have been done a little bit better. Right? I'm not used to this type of behavior or this type of expression or this type of routine. Right? So this is again performance within a role. All right, we already talked about role conflict. Okay, we already mentioned about how this might cause an issue, especially with how we have many different statuses and how all these roles come in conflict with one another. Okay, for the role of an athlete, we need to prepare ourselves. It might take time away from our studies, okay, of a different status as a student. So this is in constant conflict with one another. All right, so real quick, let me get to role strain. All right, so the difference between role conflict and role strain is that with conflict, we look at different roles within different statuses and realize how this might come in conflict with one another. I already gave the example of a student and an athlete. Role strain is a little bit different as it is describing some of the, maybe some of the frustrations, okay, maybe some of the issues that we might face within a status. So as an athlete, let's just say we're focusing as an athlete. We get an injury, okay, we get an injury. So within that injury, that's going to cause a little bit less time to obviously focus on training, on exercise, on preparing for the meet or whatever type of action you're getting involved on the field. So role strain is maybe we can't perform at our top tier. Okay, maybe we can't complete the proper behaviors, the exercises, the patterns that we usually perform within that status. So role strain, a good example is maybe we just can't reach or meet the proper expectations within that status. Okay, it's causing a strain on our performance and the expectations for that said status. Does that make sense? Okay. Real quick, last thing I want to go over. So this is just a scenario, and I usually have you guys go into groups, but you can just do it on your own and we can just kind of talk about it afterwards. So this is what I'd like you guys to do. Just read through this scenario and detail how you would probably handle it. All right, so there you go. So how would you handle this scenario? I want to give you a minute to maybe think about how you would handle the situation, and we'll talk about it. We'll discuss it. All right, since we only got 2 minutes, let's go over it real quick. So how would you handle it? How would you handle it? This is difficult, and this happens in many occasions here where you might have a relationship with someone that maybe you're the supervisor and they're working for you, but at the same time, you make friends with them. So this situation when you have to correct someone might be very difficult to do. So how would you handle it here, Abe?
Separate work and life and discipline the person normally.
Okay, all right.
It's not that-
What's that?
it's not that hard.
It's not that hard?
It
Okay.
is kind of hard.
Might be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying though, Raven. It's like, hey, we need to have this relationship in the workplace and we might have this relationship out of the workplace as a friend. Okay, we need to separate it at the time, especially when it comes to performance. All right, Allison, what do you think? Yeah, yeah, okay, good, good.
Anything other than that, it's your own fault.
Yeah, okay,
They
good.
just need to have like the honest conversation about the fact that work is work and they can be talked outside of work.
All right, good job, Haley. Kelsey, you're saying it a little bit tougher. What were you think? What were you gonna say here? What were you thinking?
I mean, I agree with them, like, you have to decide, like, yeah, you're at work, you know, you have your social life too. But I feel like if Dave yells at 10, I feel like he's gonna get mad and not decide to respect him as much, because he's like, you're my friend, if I would tell him.
Yeah, that's an issue with that, not Dave.
Yeah.
That's true, that's true. Kyle, how do you handle it?
I just tell them how it is.
Tell them how it is, right? Hey, get that Whopper in order, right? Hey, how's it going?
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm a little late.
Oh, you're good. Just finishing up this here.
No, take your time.
Well, I had a couple questions here
Sure.
about the ID number and the course number.